Erling Haaland, Harry Kane and Kylian Mbappe are the three best goal scorers in Europe right now, each averaging over a goal involvement per game. But that simple stat is the only thing they have in common. The raw power of Erling Haaland, the all-round playmaking of Harry Kane, or the pace and skillfulness of Kylian Mbappe means the goals they score are completely different. And the role they have within their teams also leads to drastically different tactical systems. In fact, behind these three players stand three of the current best managers in world football, each having built a unique system designed to highlight the strengths of their strikers and hide some of the glaring weaknesses. Because while they all excel in specific metrics, these players are not perfect, and there are certain limits that their managers need to cover up. Which leads to the question I want to answer in this video. What actually drives tactical innovation? Is it the genius ideas of the managers that find the perfect system that the players need to fall into? Or is it the individual brilliance of the players that dictate what a manager needs to do? Because when you look closely at the compromises and adjustments around these three forwards, you start to get a clearer idea of where tactical innovation actually starts. There's no better example to demonstrate this than the innovations of Guardiola and the playstyle of Erling Haaland. Man City's centre forward is undoubtedly one of the greatest goal scorers of this generation, and has had an unbelievable start to the current season. But to make this possible, Guardiola has had to develop a system that masks a lot of his limits. In fact, on FOTMob, simply by looking at the amount of passes completed per 90 in the Man City squad, Haaland is last, with 8.1 successful passes per match and a pass success of 65.9%. Even across the league as a whole, chance creation and his overall play is certainly not what makes him one of the best players in world football. So Guardiola has slowly developed a way to cover this up. The overall tactical trend for Man City this season has been to completely overload the midfield with great ball players, while Haaland's task is to keep pushing the defensive line back, freeing space between the lines and threatening a run in behind. In City's recent win over Bournemouth, Haaland's second goal perfectly demonstrates the effectiveness of this shape. Man City have their two wingers inverted to form a line of three with the playmaker Phil Foden. This completely overloads Bournemouth's two holding midfielders. So, the instant the ball is played into the free player, one of the Bournemouth centre-backs attempts to close down Foden by breaking the defensive line, which in turn frees a huge gap in the centre for Haaland to run into. The speed at which this combination takes place leaves the defence completely exposed, and from a situation like this, Haaland just doesn't miss. It's the same shape we saw in their 3-0 win over Liverpool, with Man City completely controlling the midfield. So by overloading the centre, Guardiola is using Haaland in a way that masks his difficulties as an actual ball player. City rarely look to play it directly into him, and he'll slowly hover on the defensive line and let his teammates do all the hard work, safe in knowing that when they get into the box, he will always be ready. The way he plays for Norway is basically exactly the same. He's not interested in getting involved in the move, and once his teammates get to a position where they can cross into the box, there's only one player they're looking for. So even though his general ball playing ability is not the best, his role for both Norway and Man City means he can mask his weaknesses and flourish in front of goal. But what if we flip this idea around? Guardiola has been forced to adapt because of Haaland's playstyle, and because of the rest of the players in the team. Last season showed this clearly. With key players injured or out of form, City couldn't reach the box as easily, and Haaland's numbers started to drop, forcing him to step out of his comfort zone and leading to comments like these.
But for his general play, for such a player, it is so poor. Not just today, I think he has to improve that. He's almost like a League Two player. That's the way I look at him.
The same system that once worked broke down because of the players. So Guardiola had to reinvent parts of it until we got to a system that looks like what we have today, which is basically the complete opposite of what it was a few seasons ago. So who led this change? Was it the new players that gave Guardiola an idea? Or did Guardiola already have a master plan in sight and he just needed the right players to fit the system? As a thought experiment, what do you think Guardiola would do if he had Harry Kane up top? Because Kane's influence isn't limited to the box. In fact, it's no secret that he's one of the best playmakers on the pitch, constantly moving far off the defensive line to pick up the ball, turning and playing long line-breaking passes into the wingers. So Bayern Munich's manager Vincent Kompany has moulded his tactical ideology around this core playstyle. When Bayern start their attacks, the fullbacks will push forward and play in close proximity to the wingers, while it's the two holding midfielders that will hover around the centre-backs, either dropping between them or stretching the pitch out wide. This instantly does two things. Firstly, it pins the opposition's defenders in place. As with all these players already in an offensive position, it's difficult for them to push forward. Then it completely vacates the centre of the pitch, creating the perfect combination for Kane to drop deep. So many times, these simple rotations mean Kane will be untracked all the way into midfield, giving him time and space to then do what he does best. Even in the Champions League against PSG, one of the most aggressive man-marking teams in Europe, this rotation forward from the fullback and the winger ready to play in behind meant that the centre-backs couldn't easily follow Kane's run, and he could then drop deep to receive the ball and play a line-breaking pass forward. Once the ball is out wide, Kane will move forward, but he's not instantly sprinting to get into the box. Rather, he's slowly drifting into this position in a way that's difficult to track. The defenders need to rush back quickly to form the defensive line, and the wingers will slowly try and gain ground while dribbling the fullback. And Kane moves past the midfield line just in time to get on the end of any passes back across the box. This is why his shot map is pretty spread out compared to Erling Haaland. There's efforts from long ranges, tap-ins, or even cutbacks around the penalty spot. And it's this role as a false nine that means he excels both at finishing the move and also creating chance for his teammates, with some of the best metrics in the Bundesliga for players in his position. If you like the stats I'm using in this video, then you can find them all on FOTMob, which is my go-to app for keeping up to date with all leagues, transfers, and statistics. And you can get started for free with the link in the description down below. However, just like with Haaland, Harry Kane is not perfect, and there are areas to his game where he's certainly not as efficient. He's not the quickest player, and he's arguably not known for his intense defensive work rate. So, Vincent Kompany has found a solution to mask these weaknesses. When Bayern are defending, Kane often drops deeper into the midfield, meaning there's a quicker player like Gnabry ready to press the back line. And when Bayern regain the ball, he can use his passing range to help the team progress. But he's not the one responsible for running at the back line. So let's say Pep and Guardiola come to an agreement and swap their two strikers. Do both teams continue to look and play in the same way? Well, my theory is almost certainly not. Kane wouldn't have any space to drop into midfield to pick up the ball. And even if he did play this line-breaking pass into one of the fullbacks overlapping, there wouldn't be anyone ready to attack the box. Similarly, if Bayern Munich kept to this system with Erling Haaland, they'd probably end up leaving their midfield completely exposed, with no one ready to drop to add support. And without anyone that could fill this gap in the centre, it could make it quite difficult to progress up the pitch. But there's another angle we can use to understand this point even more clearly, and all we need to do is look at Mbappe Alonso's start at Real Madrid. After his incredible time at Bayer Leverkusen with brilliant free-flowing football starting from a 3-4-2-1 formation, it looked like a certainty that Alonso would be bringing the back three formation to Real Madrid. And initially this was exactly what he was trying to do, as we saw it early on in the Club World Cup. But very quickly Alonso realised that this may not be the right shape for his team, and has since adapted to the squad at his disposal. And this is evident in the way he's using Kylian Mbappe. Firstly, one of the big differences that Alonso has had to adapt is the way he defends, and Real Madrid defend in a much different way than Leverkusen. And only real world-class talents can be excused from their defensive duties, and Mbappe has the freedom to stay up the pitch when Real Madrid defend, as his pace in transitions is a vital weapon for the team. This instantly limits one of the weaknesses that Mbappe has, and that is certainly his defensive work rate. In terms of positioning when Real Madrid are in possession, Mbappe sort of falls in the middle of Harry Kane and Erling Haaland. He plays mostly on the defensive line, and while he does drop off the defensive line to get on the ball, it's definitely not as far as Harry Kane, and he's usually just deep enough to open up a gap behind the defense that he'll attack himself. The perfect example to demonstrate this is Mbappe's goal against Atletico Madrid, which I will remind you they did lose this game 5-2. But nonetheless, Mbappe drops slightly off the defensive line, drags the defender out of position, and then bursts forward with incredible power to get on the end of the through ball. Mbappe is always ready to be played in behind, and if he isn't closed down, then he can turn and attempt to dribble the defense himself. This is why his shot map is also much more spread out compared to the other two strikers, as his attacks are usually created quicker from more transitional moments, and he's a lot more eager to get on the ball in these areas outside the box. So with Real Madrid, Alonso has had to adapt. It's a more transitional team with less focus on the high intensive press he used at Leverkusen. And by doing this, he's getting the most out of players like Kylian Mbappe. But here's the final point we need to make. Because even when adapting to the players, Alonso's philosophy is still clear for everyone to see. Real Madrid want to create overloads in possession with fluid rotations, just like we saw at Leverkusen. And there's more structure in this team compared to Ancelotti. Alonso has just had to tweak his ideas slightly to best match this new environment. But there's still a clear idea on how he thinks football should be played. So to answer the question definitively, the framing of whether it's the players or the managers to lead this tactical change might be a bit of a trap. If you lean too heavy into managerial genius, then you're pretending as if players like Haaland, Kane and Mbappe don't force huge structural change wherever they go. While if you lean too heavy into the idea that elite players dictate the system, you ignore the fact that elite managers produce recognizable football. We can look at this from the other point of view as well, for example when things aren't going well in a team. For example, Liverpool this season. After a huge transfer window, the whole team seems to be out of sync. These were all world-class players last season, but because the manager hasn't been able to find a system that integrates all these players, everyone is paying the consequences. So when you take a step back, this debate between player or manager starts to fall apart. Elite managers adapt to the players they have at their disposal, but the core ideas always remain visible. And it's the constant tug of war between player and manager that is what is needed to create true tactical innovation. If Guardiola just kept winning with the same 3-2-5 system that brought him success in the first place, then we wouldn't be witnessing all these changes we are now. And it's because football isn't perfect that we see these innovations take place. And just so we're all on the same page, there's no guarantee that these systems may work in the long run or find success in the immediate future. But in my opinion, the worst thing a manager could do is stick to his philosophy that brought him success with one team and expect it to work exactly the same with 11 different players. But what do you think about this topic? Do you think it's the players that dictate the systems or the managers that lead the evolution? Leave your thoughts in the comments down below. Thanks for watching.